back to Keepers of the Word. You're here with Mike, Ron, and James. We put together a great show for you today. And with some friends of ours, Know Thyself Podcast. But before we get into that and the subject at hand, make sure you follow all of our social media outlets, Twitch being our favorite. Hit the subscribe button and turn on your notifications to stay up to date with our new content. Ronnie.
The views and topics of Keepers of the Word are solely our opinions and do not reflect the opinions of any lodge or Grand Lodge.
And
What's
today
up,
our
guys?
subject is alchemy.
Alchemy.
Alchemy can be looked at from many different perspectives, but today we have some guys on our show that we're very excited to have. They also have their own podcast called Know Thyself. I suggest you check them out. They have a great show. And getting into alchemy, what were the origins, my friend?
Origins. I mean, you can go back
Go back to Egypt, right?
even before,
The
actually.
land of Chem,
Way before.
way before.
Mesopotamia, yeah. So you have when you start the line of the people who was probably going to be one of the first, you have Geber, who was a guy. This is, you get your Christian alchemy and stuff like that towards the Christian eras. But one of the first ones, I mean, you have Tubal Cain, who was one of the great grandsons of Cain. He was a great artificer. He created all kind of stuff using alchemy, from melting metals and putting metals together to brass and music instruments and stuff like that. So he did a lot of stuff. So I would say Tubal Cain is one of the first ones.
Hmm.
Well, Zosimos of Panopolis, the Greco-Egyptian alchemist and Gnostic mystic, was the first documented. They have some of the earliest writings about Zosimos, and I think that he gave way to other alchemists in the lineage.
The land of Chem. That's where we get the word alchemy.
Yeah,
Yep.
chemistry.
And we do know that through the Egyptian teachings, there's a lot of alchemy or in the works. And then when I believe Alexander the Great took over and the Greeks came down, they took it and messed with it some more, made it theirs,
Yeah,
and adapted. Also, we know that there was certain schools of alchemy in China and India that were separate from everything else. So here we are today, right? Getting into, let's talk about John D.
John D. You want to jump to John D already?
Well, yeah, man.
Just John D, huh?
When we talk about these guys, we're talking about some serious stuff.
Yeah. I mean, John
Original
D.
007.
Yes.
Yeah.
So weigh in
Absolutely.
on that, my friend. I know you got a lot to say.
Well, I mean, I love how we kind of started off that conversation with really kind of looking at the foundation and just how old the science of the soul is. And that's what we're dealing with. And so it very much is this universal language that we're kind of partaking in. And so, when you were talking about the connections with Egypt and Al Kemet, and Kemet being the black land where this dark science of the soul kind of manifested from, you know, even just the simple understanding of how the Egyptians would take the camel dung and bury it deeper in the sand and understand the pressures of the earth and the rotation and what would generate from that, and how it could also process and speed up the evolution of that particle the deeper they planted it into the earth, which they kind of took as this allegorical approach, as also as how we kind of do that with our own consciousness, and we take ourselves and we really add that force and that concentration, and the alchemist's mind really becomes this laboratory of this experience and this transmutation. And so I love the connection to Egypt, and I love to see how this plays such a huge role in, like you said, the Gnostics, but also to people that we wouldn't even make these connections with, like Alexander the Great, and how he really uncovered this emerald formula, this emerald tablet, and it really kind of sets up this base of this kind of unique universal science that's not only perceived in the external, but also very much experienced in the internal. and it has that dance and that play that kind of comes together. And so when you bring up the name of John Dee, you really bring up a master of an
Hmm.
individual who could make that dance from the internal to the external. And this is again kind of like Alexander the Great, how deep does this story go? And how deep does that rabbit hole of John Dee, his influence, and his influence today with Enochian magic and everything that was created from that experience. And so um, I'm just, again, I know from Eduardo and myself, we're so excited and happy to kind of have this conversation. Um, and so I just love where we kind of got it started off with this Egyptian idea, and really just this kind of talk about these big alchemical players in history. And so I'll send it kind of right back to you guys, but I just wanted to kind of address that as well in the beginning. But I would love to kind of see this conversation of where you guys would like to take this on John D.
Well, prior to John D, we have to look at how did it get there,
Yeah,
right?
I mean, you got like Nicholas Flamel, you have Albert
Mhm.
Magus, you have a ton of people who definitely
Paracelsus.
was not even the oldest, you know,
Well, they say during the 8th century, when the Arabs brought it to
to
Spain,
Spain, the Black
that's
Moors,
where it
yeah,
quickly spread to the rest of Europe.
and Kabbalah, which we just talked about the last
Correct.
episode. Yeah,
So from there, I think that's where we have the history, the European history of alchemy. But that's where it starts to get weird because when we start getting into John Dee and the lesser key and the greater key,
hmm
right? But more importantly, homunculus,
homunculus. You love the homunculus.
because it's weird, man.
You know, yeah, it's weird, and there's most people think homunculus. It's just a little dude in a glass tube, and there's various kinds of homunculi. You know,
Well,
for different reasons and different purposes.
I may be wrong,
Uh huh.
which
It's kind of fun to be wrong sometimes, though.
kind of, but wasn't it John Dee who had a bunch of homunculi in one of his labs, and then somebody went in there and was like, "Whoa, what the fuck?"
So John Dee had a bunch of cadavers.
Ah,
So he was a body thief. He would absolutely steal stuff because this was at the time medicine was kind of big. It was a fringe science. So he was stealing dead bodies. Yes, him and what's his face, John Dee and his buddy. Can't think of his name right now.
Edward.
That's
Edward
so fun
Kelly.
because
Yeah.
there it is, Edward Kelly. He's an interesting character as
Yeah.
well as what's the history of Edward Kelly? His background is such a veil. Nobody really knows
Nobody
where
knows.
Edward
No.
Kelly kind of
A,
came from, and that's just fascinating to me.
a lot of
Such a huge
people,
play.
yeah, a lot of people believe that he was a criminal, actually, that would help John Dee acquire the things that he would get. So a lot of people know that he was kind of like the muscle behind John Dee. Because as you know, a lot of people did not like John Dee. A lot of people wanted John Dee dead because he had the ear of the queen. And that was a threat to national security. You had, what was it before MI6? It was, I always forget their name. Whatever the Secret Service, they would follow him and stuff. And, I heard about charges being brought up of him stealing bodies, being caught as a thief, a body thief,
Grave thief, grave
and
robber.
but they got wiped away because he had the ear of the queen. A lot of cool stuff, a lot of dark
Right.
stuff too.
Yeah, oh, absolutely. And it's kind of interesting because of this timeline, and you're talking about European alchemy. It's so funny to think about too of how this was kind of probably not an effect that happened from the Crusades that the church probably wasn't too happy about as these crusaders were making their way to Jerusalem. They're picking up on these Islamic mysteries, and it was that birth of that Renaissance. And
Yeah.
so it's so funny how when we think about cause and effect and the effects that maybe weren't planned in this aspect of kind of trying to go take the Holy Land by force, probably they didn't probably think about the the emergence of these Islamic mystery schools kind of building up, and just that East kind of getting a connection back to the West to kind of help kind of kick us out of the Dark Ages.
Well, that's literally what it was. I mean, we were so blocked from all the knowledge, from
Mhm.
various factors, the church and other entities that were the ruling class at the time. They separated the people in the know, the people who weren't in the know, and that's how they were able to rule. That's where we got Martinism from, right? He saw this book chained to a wall that nobody could read, and it was called the Bible. And he thought, wow, man, everybody should read this thing. So
Right.
there's a lot of stuff that the Dark Ages, man. If it wasn't for the wars, wars always promote technology or lost technology or something. Unfortunately, it gets us off our lazy butts, I guess. But the real reason they went to the Crusades was to go to the Holy of Holies, to go retrieve stuff, because the people at that had created that knew what was there already, and they went there to go retrieve mysteries and to bring them back to Scotland.
Right.
Good stuff.
Yep, absolutely.
When it came to D, though, I mean, I think that he was fortunate that he had the ear of the queen, because wasn't it a crime
saved
to
him.
practice alchemy during that time? I mean,
Yes.
there was some heinous punishments that would be put upon people if they were actually practicing alchemy. So for D to have the ear of the queen, he was fortunate to be able to do it.
Right. So the number one reason why alchemy was banned from almost any royal society, anytime there was a king or any government did not want this practice, because in the end you can transmutate anything into gold. So you would deflate the whole economy. You would now not need gold, and now the kings and queens wouldn't mean anything.
Right.
That's why you
You
couldn't
know,
do that.
yeah, and this is also why when you were speaking about how when it kind of became medieval alchemy, it got so weird because people had to speak in these allegorical stories, and they had to kind of veil it because, like you said, it was illegal to practice alchemy. So the individuals that kept it going in these underground networks had to make it very veiled, and that's why when you read alchemical texts from the medieval centuries, you really have to read it with that law of correspondences in mind. What planet are they actually talking about? What element are they talking about? Because they kind of have to dance around the subject because, like you were saying, it wasn't something that could be openly practiced.
Right. Yeah, they had to hide all the symbols and the paintings and stuff like that they
And
would
the
do.
homoculi.
And the homunculi.
And the
Yes.
homunculi.
Yes.
Well, and
Yeah.
like you said, James, I mean, you're talking about sciences that were advancing as far as medicine's concerned, as far as
Right.
chemistry's concerned, metallurgy, all types of things. And that was not only the gold issue was not only a threat to kings and kingdoms, but I mean the science aspect of it was a threat to the church. So of course the church wanted
Well,
to
yeah, not
suppress
just
the
that.
information.
Yeah, not just that, but think about it. If that information's out there, your enemies could get that. Another country could get that. That's why they banned it. They were practicing it because it thrives still. So it was just hidden within the mystery schools. And there were a ton of mystery schools that were part of these royal societies and stuff like that, that they were being funded and stuff like that from there. But you can't have it out to the masses where everybody can make a brick of gold for themselves. Now it's just dirt at that point.
But back to the homoculi.
Homoculi. Let's talk about homoculi. He wants to talk about homoculi.
Well, because it's weird, man.
It is
like the
weird.
first time I figured out what it was,
Right.
I was like, nah, that's bullshit. No way.
Yeah.
And then no, that's what happened.
Yeah.
So for those of you that don't know what this is or what a homunculus is,
It's a little person.
it's well, yes and no. They use what glass
A glass tube.
like a
yeah.
glass tube or glass
Right,
vase.
Right.
But you would insert blood. You would insert. There was many different.
There's many different
right,
ingredients.
but the main two things was sperm, blood, and some type of organism,
Earth, the
or
Usually
an
it was
embryo,
red clay because of Adam and the
or
death
something,
of the red man.
right? But over time, after you continuously feed it, and feeding it could mean a million different things,
Correct.
right? Something would grow out of it.
Right.
And some of those
Just to
things
be
were
with-
kind of weird.
Well,
man.
yeah, because they didn't have proper genetic coding. So imagine, like somebody who's born without an arm, they're missing that piece of the coding, so they didn't produce that. So when you have a homunculi, you have a hodgepodge. It's like a potluck.
Like a chicken hawk.
Yeah, chicken hawk. Right. A jackrabbit, right?
Yeah, right.
Yeah. You're trying to make something out of it, but It's really, again, with magic, it's all about the intention. So,
Right.
for example, I want to go off roading. I'm not going to take a Ferrari off roading. I'm not going to go build a Ferrari to do off roading. So it's what the outcome is, what you want, And with magic or anything like that, you have to think of the outcome, and then the magic is reversing it and figuring out how to get to that outcome that you desire. So
Interesting.
there was, a homunculi, and I'm going to put this loosely related, golems.
Gollum.
Golems,
Clay
yeah.
the clay
There's different kinds. There's
Yeah.
trash ones. There's dead body ones. There's all kinds of stuff depending on what the
is that related to Goetia? Because
no.
you have to put symbols or sigils on it in
You
order to bring it to life.
They're
right?
all related, man. It's like a car. You got a car goes super fast, one goes super slow, one can carry something heavy. It does different things in different attributes.
Interesting.
It's interesting with the Hemeculi as well, because you kind of watch these experiences, and like you said, something ugly and terrible could be created from this. You also think about it, and again, the spiritual alchemical terms. This is your semen, and this is your blood, and this is earth. These are the life forces, and our life forces, if we're not directing them correctly, if they're not in a state of homeostasis, we will create something ugly in our lives. We will take that jar, and actually make it our external environment. And so it was, again, these alchemical lessons are so beautiful because you can witness them on the physical, you can explore them on the mental, and then you really kind of get engulfed it on the spiritual. And it's kind of these lenses that you could kind of look at it. But you think about that life force energy, and like you think about your blood and how it wills you to go. And that's exactly what these experiments were kind of looking at. So we could
Mhm.
really kind of view it from these opposite these tiers. But it does. We think about some of the Frankenstein monsters that we create with that unintentional life force when we use it negatively.
Correct.
Right.
You know. So
Now,
absolutely.
people that represent alchemy, who like an alchemist, who would be
Like Top Dog.
yeah.
I mean, Nicholas Flamel did a lot of
Well, no.
research. He's a good one. Some people don't like him.
Right. Yeah. No. And Isaac Newton on his deathbed.
Isaac Newton was
They.
one. The whole Royal
The
Society
whole
and
Royal
all those
all the
guys
Royal
and all
Society.
their stuff. And that's another great example of high upper end class, of royalty saying, "You guys can't do that. Okay, it's 12 o'clock midnight. Let's go do it now. All the poor people are asleep." That's exactly what they were doing. You have that. You have Jacob Boehm. That guy is another. He's huge. And then people say Christian Rosenkreutz, if he was a real person or not. But the person who wrote that treaty was an alchemist for sure, and that's way down the line. But you have all kind of people. Who else would be Albert Magus? Who
Magus.
yeah, he
Cali,
took a lot of his stuff from other people.
Cagliostro. Oh God, what's his name?
Cagliostro,
Yeah, there you
Count
go.
Cagliostro.
Count.
Yeah, he was many different people.
Count Saint
Another
Germain.
one.
Bacon, yeah,
Germain,
Robert
yeah.
Bacon. Robert
Bacon,
Bacon's
of
another
course.
one. He's a great
Yes.
one. A lot of awesome writings from him, whether he stole it or
Yes.
not. It's great writings. There's a lot of stuff. There's a lot of people there. I had a 2-page list.
Yeah, it's a long list.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
Well,
So-
did you know that Arthur D, who was John Dee's son, became the royal doctor for the Tsar, and it was his goal because ever since he was young, he was being raised by his father to be an alchemist because he recognized from a very young age he had the same birthday as him, they had the same sign. There was lots of indications that gave D the idea that Arthur would be his prodigy and would be a great alchemist. So he had invested a lot into him, and Arthur became, like I said, the physician for the Tsar. But eventually, his goal was to create something great to leave a legacy for his father because he wanted to make his father proud, and so he had some great collections. And I don't know if you've heard or not, but recently There was a doctorate student at Georgia State named Megan Piorkio that did her dissertation on the interpretation of his let's see, what was it? The chemical collections of transmutation in the work of Arthur D. And supposedly, I guess she was doing her dissertation on this, and between her and another one of her associates and some crazy freaking code writer, they've interpreted it and have the understanding of what the code was to be able to decipher his whole everything that he was writing. So they just finished that in 2020, and they're writing a new paper on it, and supposedly probably within the next year or so we're going to hear something on that. So
Wow.
very, very
that's
good.
amazing.
It's exciting.
Yeah, that's the kind of university work we can get behind. We like that. That's amazing. Absolutely.
No, speaking of universities and alchemy, we can make gold. It just costs a whole lot. We can do it in a nuclear facility, under that much pressure. And I think it takes 24 hours, and it makes like less than an ounce of gold. And I think it's like $16,000 something like an hour.
But
It's something
these
ridiculous.
guys had it down to where they were using the red dust, the philosopher's stone, and including that into this recipe that changed these base metals into gold.
Mhm.
And they were able to do it with a lot.
So
we're missing a part. We're missing
that's
something, right?
controversial. Yeah. So like Nicholas Flamel apparently wrote that he didn't actually make it, but his adept did, and I don't want to curse here, but I probably beat the heck out of the guy trying to get the answer and how he did it because he was supposed to watch the stuff. And finally, the guy told him, "I didn't want to tell you, but I fell asleep." So, can you believe that? He fell asleep, and when he woke up, the outside
I had gold.
Yeah, the outside was covered in gold. So when they cracked it open, it wasn't gold all the way through, but it was on the outside. And so they didn't know the length of time that it was in the furnace baking. Can you believe that?
But then again, we look at the philosopher's stone from a spiritual perspective. It is one of the keys to immortality, where you see people like John Dee, Edward Kelly, and even Count Saint Germain say they've used this dust or created
Right.
this dust that gave them this life that we ourselves cannot live.
Right. There's two dusts that I've ever heard of in all my 30 plus years of studying this, and there's white dust.
Angel dust.
No, that's white dust, and there's red dust. White dust is from the Sinai Peninsula, what everybody fought over. That's why nobody exists there today, except the Egyptian government and the military facilities that are there that won't not let anybody there. That was the pharaohs that were going over there, and this is why Moses was there for 40 years, which takes you 2 weeks to walk across. So they occupied that with a standing army to block the Egyptians from getting this white dust. And then there's the red dust, which does the alchemical purpose of transmuting base material into gold. So, and they're just mysterious. Like, you try to read about it, and you think about it, anybody who has this, you want to kill the next person who knows it because you're the only one with it.
The key to that dust was DMT.
Probably.
I was
No, it
just going to
was.
say, talk about that red dust, Mike.
Yeah.
The acacia plant, and there's
Yeah.
there's all kind of stuff. So I'll say this: I do firmly believe that almost anything that we can create in a lab, nature is doing it already. Nature is doing it out there in the world. So, and transmutation, I'm not saying so much that, but maybe on a micro scale, not macro. But we're just trying to catch up and duplicate. We're trying to make the grape flavored Jolly Rancher of the grape. So Earth is doing this already, making gold with all the pressure and stuff like that over so many years, billions of years or whatever.
When you guys were talking about how it got weird in Europe with alchemy, I think that part of that was that alchemy was really kind of a starting point for so many things. I mean, alchemy was gave birth to metallurgy, and it gave birth to pharmacology, and it gave birth to chemistry first and foremost. But I mean, depending on the alchemist and what his focus was and what his personal transmutation was, I think that the reason why it got so weird was because you had this branching out of the science, and whether people were looking at the pharmacological, which is a P.D. Newman that talks about the red powder, and uh, and that there was a school of alchemy that was basically just working towards creating DMT and drug, things to manipulate our consciousness. And then there were alchemists that were focused on the gold and the metallurgy. I mean, I think it got weird because there was the branching out of the sciences and the whole explosion
What
of
happens when
what
you're by yourself? Nobody's there to tell you you're fucking up, dude. So you're gonna do weird shit. I'm gonna mix my nut with a piece of gold, right? Let's see what happens.
going back to the homunculi.
I'm sorry. I'm sorry. I just like to point out the weird shit because it's like, hey man, like, come on. Somebody's got to have a question about this stuff, right? I mean,
you want a golden
I
homunculi.
want to know who the hell said, "Hey, let's do this," and then that equaled a jar with a bunch of weird shit in it, right?
Yeah,
But
stop talking about my house. But
now when we look at alchemy and we look at alchemy, we look at alchemy from a spiritual perspective. We're looking at mental alchemy. We're looking at how we can change ourselves
transcendental
from
magic, yeah.
lead to gold. Now, what does that mean,
spiritual
right?
alchemy.
To everybody, I just want to say there's a process, dude. And I think the process is really getting really implanting these seeds in your mind and then watering them and watching them grow in that direction. Then you have to feed it. You have to feed it light, and you have to feed it. You have to feed these things. Alchemy, like in Freemasonry, if for anybody that says Freemasonry, there's no alchemy in Freemasonry, I'm sorry, dude, but you joined the wrong group.
Right.
And secondly,
Pancakes.
if that's what they're saying, they're just like, oh, well, just eat your pancakes. Okay, cool. But the truth is, the whole purpose of masonry is to make good men better men, right? And that goes for like any organization out there that challenges your person to be something better. That's alchemy, dude.
Yeah. In a nutshell, mystery schools are basically a formula that you can change your brain into.
Correct.
Right. That's what it is. It's to create a new platform to now interact with the world around you.
Correct.
Right.
Yeah.
A higher
You're
perspective.
Yeah, no, absolutely. And I think you're right. And I think what spiritual alchemy really is it's a roadmap of conscious expansion and unfoldment. But what it does is it shows us the map of this, and we can kind of see the signs. And you see it in this alchemical language, and they talk about these 7 steps and how you kind of personally kind of have experiences with fire, water, air, earth, and as you kind of make your way through it, it's this really allegorical science of the soul, and so I think when we do approach alchemy for more of its spiritual aspects, and we even talked about it when we kind of approach this spiritual alchemy, it's even like one of those aspects of what does this do for my soul? You think about something like the physical alchemist would see winning the lottery as, oh, that's gold. I have this abundance physical gold, right? And the mental one will be like, oh, yeah, that's going to kind of free up time for my own mental development. But the spiritual alchemist is going to look at that event and say, well, what was the effect on the soul of winning the lottery? Did that make them a better person? Did it develop their character? Did it make us better men? Did it make us a stronger individual? Because it very well could. We get tested sometimes with not so much scarcity, but sometimes how do you handle abundance? And so the spiritual alchemist would view life like this. What's the effect of this on my soul, and how do I make decisions based on that evolution of my soul? So we're quite literally kind of taking the camel dung of life and pushing it down with that consciousness. And this is truly the furnace that the alchemist works with. It's concentration. And that's kind of the first step. And then there's the aspect of, surrendering to creation and natural laws and kind of the incorporation of archetypes that comes with this process. But it's such a unique aspect because it's this universal roadmap of consciousness that we see spring up in so many different parts of the world. And so it's perennial, it's within us. And it's really beautiful because this can unfold in an amazing organization like the Masons, but this also can unfold for the person who's stuck in a jail cell with one little light. They too can make this connection and they too can put through this process because it's something that's within us. And so that's what's so beautiful when you talk about these organizations that make us better individuals, because they recognize that and they harbor it and they create a space for it, for that developing. Because we read about it in Manly P. Hall, and all these alchemists talk about it. The true community is only going to come when the individual is truly formed. And that's what it is. It's that collection of all the individuals together, which really makes a true community. And so it's, again, it's always just such an honor to be on this connection with other alchemists and other people on this journey. And so, as we keep having this conversation, I know from Eduardo and myself, we're just so jazzed about what we're chatting about right here, because this is it. This is the big things.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
I
absolutely.
concur. I feel we're all alchemists to a certain extent, right? Based on what your beliefs are and what you do in life and how you handle situations, your reaction. That's alchemy, man. Especially if you see yourself, if you look at yourself now and then you look at yourself 10 years ago and you've seen how far you have come as an individual in this world. And this world's crazy, man. There's a bunch of negativity in it. And to keep yourself positive throughout all that, it's hard. That's where the real work comes in.
That's the training and the practice.
Yes, and I feel if we're able to help each other and kind of guide where, hey man, I see you did this and I see you're feeling this right now, but try this. Try this method. And if it works for you, great. It might not always work for you, but at least you're learning and you're trying and you're developing your methods.
Agreed, man. I mean, having that, we've talked about this before, but when you raise your intensity of these experiences that you have, that's when you can find that true value of that transmutation. And I feel like a lot of us stop right there when the experience is occurring, because when the experience is occurring, it might be so heavy that you just want to obviously go the opposite direction. But you have a clear window for a moment where you can sort of take a peek and realize, oh, this is an opportunity here for that growth and for that expansion, and what the true transmutation will become after you actually pick up that call. But a lot of us don't, because again, the pain is a lot to bear, you know?
Right. That's what the mystery schools is. Exactly what you were just saying right there, where people reach that point. The mystery school is the training and the understanding to get through the fear. Because the fear is creating ignorance because you don't know what that is. Now you're afraid to move through. The mystery schools, each person going through something, they're all relatively the same. It's a shock
Right.
and awe. It's, oh my God, I don't want this. Oh my God, because it's change. And change usually has some form of destruction or something being destroyed, so something can move, so that can be moved out of the way, so creation can now happen. And the mystery schools educate that adept or initiate or individual, and this is what's gonna happen. This is gonna hit like a train, and then this is what you gotta do. You just gotta do that right here, and then move on, and then now you can have the understanding to now turn back around and have a little bit more introspection and see what took place. Oh wow. And then the rest of your life, you sit there and you dissect what took place in this amazing experience, because that's really what it is. It's an experience that changes the individual and transmutates them.
You were talking about being in prison, and I immediately thought of Damien Eccles and
Yeah, that's what I was thinking about too. Yeah.
learning high magic and Zen Buddhism while he was in prison in the worst possible situation of his life, and attributing it to being the best thing that ever happened to him was just totally the transmutation and totally the perspective of how can I take this and change it and make it better.
Yeah. I mean, that guy's a crazy story, that that guy has. He does classes like a weekend class out in Joshua at these place where there's like 26 vortexes surrounding the place. It's pretty cool.
You might disappear, you might
You
not. I don't know.
might, a little bit.
Yeah,
No
I
chance
want
may
to go,
be
James.
said.
Let me find out about it, James. I want to go.
You want to
yeah.
go? Yeah, yeah. It's
I
out in
want to go.
Joshua Tree. It's actually, yeah, it's really cheap too to go there. I mean, I don't know about his class, but the place you can rent places. I have a lot of photos of all the vortexes around there. There's like 26 vortexes on this one place, but it's free to go to. You can go in, and then there's these like little cabins that you can rent for like $25 a night, and you pile your buddies in there. But he does a class there. It's pretty cool.
Yeah, he's got a clip on YouTube being on a morning show one time, and they're just it's when he wrote his book, and he just kills it on this morning show.
Yeah.
Like you're just like just this
He knows his
master
stuff.
wizard. He knows his stuff, and like because of his life experiences and everything he went through, his way of delivering the information is so powerful as well. That even if it's information you've heard before, it almost like reharvests it and kind of makes you kind of like when you see a symbol again that you've seen 1,000 times, but then this new imprint of an idea kind of comes to your mind. It's the kind of the same thing with his presentation. And I think that checking out that space in Joshua Tree for his classes, I know his Patreon account's really affordable. I bet that's worth every dollar that it is, and I bet it's nothing too crazy either.
It's
So it's
not.
a
I
great
don't.
little thing. Yeah.
Yeah, I know people who have taken the course,
Cool.
and they loved it. My whole thing about him is I just trip out on the other people that were around him in the prison, what they were saying, and what they would see from their prison cell or the guards. The guards would pull his ass out of the cell and search it and be like, "How are you doing that? Like, what? We hear voices. There's light in your room. Like, what's going on?" They were tripped out. He's like, I don't know, man. He said he was scared. He thought he was dying. He's like, I don't know, I'm going crazy. And then the cellmates, people across from him were like, we don't want to be here no more,
Get
man. We don't know
me
what's
out.
going on. Yeah, they wanted out. He said that he was talking about when it started happening that he wanted to read as much as he could to try to understand what was going on. And that's why, his library card, man, he would max that thing out. He'd sit there and read all these books. But that guy's a cool guy. Maybe we'll try and get him on the show one time.
That would be
That would be
nice.
really,
Yeah.
I would love that, you guys.
So, alchemy on the perspective of, well, from my perspective in Freemasonry, didn't really show up that way. When you go through your degrees and you go through the whole thing, you're transformed, but you're really not. I guess that's the best way
No.
to put it.
No, yeah.
You are once you've been educated
Mhm.
on the degree and the ritual work, then yes, you have been transformed, you've been transmuted. But the way they push you through,
Right.
it's not fair, man.
It's
They
not
need to
fair.
stop doing that, dude.
They just push you through,
Yeah.
and they say, "Hey, you're a third degree master mason. Have a wonderful life, man. Good luck."
Mm.
And you got to
There
figure it
go.
out yourself.
Sayonara.
So
That's it. That's it, Mike. You have to figure it out yourself. And the problem is that sometimes that's a lifelong journey. I mean, it
For
took me
sure.
almost 15 years in masonry to start realizing that and start making the real changes in my life. I mean, look at the shit that you know between helping to start a new lodge and a new motorcycle club and buying my first house. I mean, I'm 50 years old, and it took me a long time to figure that out. And that was absolutely nothing that I was being taught within masonry, but that I had to figure out myself. And that's unfortunate. And hopefully by us talking about this situation and helping people realize that alchemy is a real part of masonry, and mental alchemy is something that should be first and foremost in the mind of every Mason, especially when you talk
Mhm.
about working your ashlar and trying to create a better man every single day. Hopefully, we'll be able to impart that information to new Masons that will understand sooner than some of us have been
correct.
able
Yeah,
Yeah.
to.
that's so true. Like so many people have similar scenarios. Like when I went through my 3 degrees 17 years ago, when I popped up, I was already in the occult community. I was already studying stuff. So when I got my third degree, I'm like, cool, I'm ready. What's up?
I got a
I'm ready for
macula.
this. I did it, and then I came out. I'm like, okay, cool. I want to learn about this and that. And they're like, whoa, 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 whoa. We can't talk
Like
about that.
pancakes.
I'm like, what? They're like, you can't talk
Pancakes.
about that. Here's a platter. Go
Yeah, here's
eat.
some
Eat.
pancakes.
I'm like, whoa, man. And then I had a few brothers pull me to the side, like, look it, this is the table that you can come sit at and we can talk about it. But you can't let the old guys hear. They don't want us to talk about it. I'm like, wow, what the heck, man? That's
Good thing,
insane.
good thing that's happening now is more lodges are getting up to the know.
Yep.
They're understanding that this is a huge part that's resurging, and you either need to adapt or go the way of the dodo.
Right.
You
I mean,
know.
this is the whole point of Keepers of the Word. This is why we do what we do. We want to educate Masons and people who are non Masons or anybody who's out there that wants that knowledge, who is seeking to learn more and expand themselves, you know?
And you don't have to be a Mason to
No.
study this stuff. I mean, look at the brothers that we have on here with us, Eduardo and Daniel. They study this and they use it and they work it and it works for them. You don't have to join an
You
organization to
don't
do
have
that,
to.
but it does, if that's your flavor, then hey, go for it,
Yeah.
dude.
I waited a long time before I joined Freemasonry. I was 18. I already had a proposition for me to go. My grandfather was a Freemason, and I waited. I waited, and I continued all my studies because I want to be well rounded when I came there. I didn't want to be like I didn't know anything because I was already kind of halfway there. And then it was just kind of a disappointment going through. I mean, it was a beautiful. The rituals were beautiful. They were well executed. It's just at the end, they're just like pancakes and green beans, buddy.
Yeah,
So
interesting. Interesting.
I have something interesting that I wanted to read. It's one in the comments by Michael Samu. Uh,
What's up, Mike?
do you guys feel like you could describe correspondences between FM and the 7 steps of alchemy?
Correspondences of FM, like the frequency, like the.
Freemasonry, I believe he was saying.
Oh, I'm so
FM is
sorry. I
Freemasonry.
was like,
Yeah.
I didn't know if we were gonna get it because it was funny. We were just talking about like electricity recently.
Well, jump into that.
Actually, yeah, I know.
Yeah.
And that's we've been actually doing a lot of the squaring the circle and kind of the housing unit of this of consciousness. A lot is what we've been talking about. But this the Freemason the rituals of the Freemasonry and one of the things I wanted to kind of touch on was I do kind of feel like there is a renaissance within Masonry. I feel like the young blood that's
For
coming in
sure.
is joining it for this spiritual aspect and this spiritual alchemy. And so again, I think it's so important what this channel is doing because it's spreading that word because there is something about having a fraternal brotherhood and a group to be able to do this. Again, we can do this in a jail cell, but we can also do this in a collective environment. Whatever kind of that organization even entails. But I would be kind of interested to talk this out. And again, I know you guys can't share as much, but what I'll do is we'll kind of talk about the 7 steps of alchemy, and we'll just kind of break it down by the element that we're kind of working with. And then you can kind of once I get kind of done breaking that down, maybe you guys can kind of help point out those correspondences. Obviously, the ones you can kind of talk about, but the alchemical process really was broken down into this 7 steps, just like the 7 days of the week. And the first step being calcination and dealing with fire. And then it would kind of make its way through the elements. And so we would go from fire. And that first step really is taking command of the active consciousness, taking command of the birthright, of really owning your consciousness and that left side of your brain and really gaining control of it, complete control over the active consciousness. And so this first one really kind of deals with fire and concentration. And then the second step is when we actually kind of deal with the waters of the life. And this would be a little bit more lunar, and this is a more emotional based. And this is actually the surrendering aspect. This is kind of surrendering to the sacred feminine and the holistic nature and the intuition and the big picture idea. And so, because in alchemy, we know in the natural world, you're either eaten or you're getting eaten. It's how this aspect happens. And so you are meant to dominate in certain places, but in certain places you're supposed to surrender. And where the alchemists really felt like they needed to surrender was to natural law, to creation. Surrender to the law of cause and effect, surrender to the law of vibration. And that's part of this kind of path. And so we kind of go from this water aspect to the air aspect. And this is kind of this insight and this inspiration. And this is again why I think the third step of Masonry might be this kind of breaking part of this inspiration. And it's kind of like, well, from what I've read about, it is kind of this reawakening inside of this kind of this spirit energy that kind of marks that. And then we just kind of go right to the fourth element, which is going to be earth, and it's the manifestation of this. And so these first four steps, it's really kind of this alchemical process that really is kind of the incorporation of the personal shadow, is what you would kind of be saying is happening in these steps. And so an individual constantly kind of goes through these four-step processes. And a lot of the times, individuals are stuck in the first two, which is fire and water. And we know this because we burn in the hells of life sometimes, and sometimes we feel like we're drowning in life. And so most individuals are actually always stuck kind of between these first two steps. And so again, this is what Freemasonry offers. It offers you how to not be burning in the fires, that not be burning in the divine fire that's trapped in the materialistic realm. How do you kind of free yourself of that? Well, you take command of your consciousness. And then the second stage of water is when we really kind of do the surrendering. And so we kind of go through these first four steps, really kind of look at the incorporation of almost like the personal shadow. And then as we kind of go through this and we make our way up the fifth, the sixth, and the seventh, this is kind of more of kind of connecting to the collective shadow and the aspect of the incorporation of archetypes. And this is what kind of Jungian philosophy speaks about with the anima and the animus, and like the incorporation of those larger, the cosmic mother and the cosmic father, making sure we have the right relationship to these universal concepts because they're so unfolding, because they go so deep. As we kind of spiritually develop, we gain a higher relationship to even these really large archetypes. And so this seventh step of alchemy really kind of just folds in. And I don't know if it would go obviously like with the initial steps, right in line with them, but I would be very interesting to see how this comes up in the process, how this kind of comes up in Freemasonic kind of literature and discussions.
Well,
Really tricky for us to answer that
Yeah, I
without,
know, and I'm sorry.
yeah,
And
without saying anything. But I
yes,
can respond
Say
to
it's built. It's definitely built into the degrees for sure,
you.
and
Yes,
that we anyone who wants to search for it can absolutely see it without any I mean, I say search for it, I mean just freaking
right.
anyone who's familiar with alchemical processes are going to totally see those elements of the 3 degrees and understand them from that perspective. But those that don't know, they can actually learn and search. Like I said, it took me going after my degrees to learn that type of stuff. And actually, Tim Hogan was a great teacher because he was he's written a bunch of books on Freemasonry. He's done a bunch of stuff on alchemy. He's a modern practitioner of alchemy. He created an alchemical lab at the Grand Lodge of Colorado, and he's a past Grand Master of Colorado. Um, he did
he's a
a
big time
talk
guy.
at the he did a talk at the Scottish Rite in Pasadena many years ago, and that was my first introduction to alchemy and the connections of the alchemical processes within Freemasonry. And so it's definitely there for sure.
Yeah.
And guys too, sometimes you just have to smack my hand because this will be not the first time in this relationship. I'll ask you a question, be like, "I'm so sorry, Daniel."
Just keep
you
asking,
know
man.
what?
It's not a problem.
It's not
best.
really.
You're the
It's not
best.
really a smacking of the hand. It's everything that you just said happens in the ritual, right?
Mhm.
Through the degrees,
In
first,
some
second,
sense
and
or
third. In
another.
some sense or
Right,
movement,
right.
it's happening, right? There's this brother by the name of Merrick Hamer, past master. He's very well known.
Amazing person.
The guy
Holy City Fighters?
broke it down, broke down I believe he broke down the first degree, right? He broke down the first degree for
That
us.
was the first degree that the last
And
lecture
he
we
was
were
talking
to.
about the movements, the preambulation. He was talking about the positions, the
They
wraps,
all mean
and they
something.
all have this meaning that is designed for you to see that you're being transmuted into some a higher
They're
version of
all
yourself.
ingredients. They're all separate
Yeah,
ingredients.
and each one of the ingredients had a different alchemical symbol when he
Mm-hmm.
was. And so yes, everything you just said exists, but unfortunately, if you really want to get into the depth of it all, you're gonna have to go through the degrees, man.
Good
Yeah,
luck.
no.
I'm not trying to sell you anything,
Yeah,
but I'm
you
just
know,
saying it's okay. I could tell you, even if I were to tell you, like say I were to just walk you through it, it's still not the same.
it's not the same
It's
because
not the same.
It's not the
you need the
it's not the
experience.
initiatory
Right.
process. The
Right.
initiatory process is the is a major element of it, and we've talked about that on the show before. That secrets of Freemasonry are only secret to those that don't know how to use the Google search engine. There's lots of things you can learn about Masonry and our ritual and everything by looking on the internet, but until you've gone through any type of initiatory mystery school and been part of that, it's totally something that you won't ever understand. Your spirit just cannot connect to it until you've been a part of that and you've experienced that initiation.
Yeah, no, I mean it's a rite of passage, and it's something that was, used to be carried on by these ancient traditions, and this would have been something that, everybody would kind of go through. And so it is so important to have those rites of passages. So I couldn't agree more.
Are there any specific books or areas of interest in alchemy that you guys really look to as okay? This is a good area where I could just continuously learn from.
Emerald tablet.
Yes, that would be it. Yeah, yeah. I would
Yeah.
say that would be when it comes to researchers, Eduardo and I always suggest for like every subject to start out. Manly P. Hall has written something on it, and it's probably very
Hey.
concise and very well. And so he is always our first recommendation for anybody, any spiritual topic, which is so beautiful. East, West, he's written on it, and he's spoken on it, and he's done it in a very objective way. And so when it comes to researchers, he's always the first that comes to my mind.
Yeah.
But I would agree with this emerald tablet, which is so unique about this because again we've had such this unique conversation, and I forget about how this alchemical tablet that is one of the oldest artifacts that we have. We really have it in its undiluted form, and it's kind of its translation is really the seven steps of alchemy that I just spoke of really follows that tablet and that formula to the T. And it that's the iceberg that kind of goes on forever. I would say is that alchemical and the emerald tablet.
Emerald tablet is a doozy because that thing, what the emerald tablet was, what it was made from, goes back way far to like the creation, where it fell from. When certain somebody fell, came out of a crown, all kind of cool things that they found later and then inscribed it later. But there's a bunch of stuff that's there. Manly B. Hall would be the first go-to for anybody for sure. Um, that's my
Mhm.
go-to. I collect his first edition signed books. I'm a big fan. I'm just lucky that I'm out here near his house and I can visit his place all the time. And
Stalker
Wow.
vibes.
yes, yes, I hang out with his buddy, his apprentice who was making the books with him back in the day when they first opened up shop. That's Dr.
Oh
Heller,
wow, at the
Wow.
and he's
PRS. Wow,
yeah, at
that's
the PRS
amazing.
Society and
Yeah.
Best at Lodge. What's up, Best at Lodge? And
Okay.
PRS, what's up? Um,
That's it.
amazing group of people. Um, amazing lectures there. Pre-COVID, I was there probably once a week. Amazing.
Wow.
I was there, so I brought a book to see, just to validate. So the head librarian over there, her name's Kelly, and I said, "Hey, I just want you to validate if this is one of his books because I've never been able to find it in any catalog." And I showed it to her. She goes, "Nope, that's one of his lectures on magic. That was titled like that." She goes, "Hold on." She turns around, and there's this glass case, and she unlocks and opens it, and she's going through all this stuff. She goes, "Here, look." and I take it, and my book is red and has a pentagram on it and says magic. And then the one that she gave me is blue and just says magic. She's like, I've never seen that before, but that's his. Look at how it is on the inside. It's the same thing. And I go, that's crazy. This is the blue one and this is an old one. She's like, I don't know. That's Mallory P. Hall's book. I'm like, I'm sorry. I'm sorry. What? And the case that she opened was his personal collection of books that he had. And I was like, oh my God, dude, you can't just open the case like that. I'm going to run away with these things or like eat one or lick one. I don't know. I mean, she's like, hey, you have a super rare book. We don't have this in our catalog. So.
Hope you weren't making weird noises, man.
Yeah, I was.
Well, I would have definitely thrown up.
I was shocked.
Yeah.
I was completely shocked when she did that. I'm like, oh my God. And then what was it when they did the dedication ceremony for the online library, which anybody should check out? There was something like 35 new books that were added to the world catalog because the world had lost it. Can you believe that? 35. Just adding one book to the world catalog that was unknown is amazing. But he had 35 because he traveled around the world collecting everything. There's also Mitch Horowitz, who's over there, who's a really cool person.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, he's the
awesome
man.
lectures and stuff. He's a cool guy to hang out with. You know, he's a normal person. You know.
Oh, cool.
Yeah,
I
he's
don't know if did you guys have a chance to check out that Kybalion film that came out that he did some work on that just
Not
came
yet.
out a couple weeks ago? He did
Yeah.
fantastic on that. He
Yeah, I
killed
haven't
it.
Dropped,
seen it yet.
right?
What's that?
There's a movie.
It just dropped, right?
Yeah.
It was just
Yeah,
came
It
out.
just came out.
Yeah, he
Just
was
came out.
working on
Yeah,
it
just
end of last year. I was waiting for it.
Okay, so since we're talking about movies and alchemy, have you guys seen Holy Mountain?
No, I have not.
What?
Holy Mountain, also from the 70s.
Yes.
Yes.
That.
Yes, yes, oh, absolutely. The cult film. Yeah, oh, absolutely. I'm so sorry. I couldn't
no,
quite
it's
hear
okay.
it, and I was just like, I didn't know if it was a rewind. Yes, that was, I found that actually through YouTube, just
Yes,
clips,
it's on
really
YouTube.
early on.
There's
Yes.
two versions on YouTube. There's two, which I had to
I don't
find
think
out
it is
later.
anymore, dude. The last time I tried to look it up, ever since the
The rights thing came out, and they're trying to issue
rights
it.
and stuff like
Yeah.
that. Yep.
So
They've
you
got it
have to
locked
go
down.
through all the weird stuff on YouTube when you search it. Keep scrolling. It's like probably like 15 scrolls in. It's
Got it.
way down there, and there's two versions. There's a cut version for time, and there's a full length version. There's whole scenes in there that you don't ever see.
Mm.
So I found the full length version, just trying to show it to a friend. And I'm like, I've never seen this before. What the heck is this, dude? And the length of time was completely different.
That is
Dude,
interesting. I need to check that out.
Jodorowsky should have made Dune, dude.
It would have been amazing.
Jodorowsky should have done Dune. That would have been
Yeah.
awesome.
He would have kept the original colors of the spaceships and everything, all the bright colors and stuff,
Been rad.
stripes and stuff. Yeah.
Let me answer this question real quick that one of our viewers, Rad Optimistic. I'm getting pushback in my district on topics of alchemy. How do I convince them of the relevance to our craft? I need a Masonic community of practice. Well, sir, we are that Masonic community, and there's a bunch of people within our reach, friends that are, into, I don't know where he's from. Didn't say that. But if you look into P.D. Newman and Jamie Paul Lamb, two authors that are heavy into alchemy and their brothers, look at their stuff and then present that stuff as your references. Also, like James just
Don't
said,
forget Tim Hogan.
Tim
Tim
Hogan.
Hogan.
Yes.
He's got books.
Tim Hogan's also another guy who's been around for a while, very well known in the craft, and has talked about alchemy. And if you need us to do anything to help you out, maybe get the word out or whatever, just let us know. We love to help. We love to help lodges get these type of topics out and in the open.
Just to let you know, Tim Hogan has a book called The Alchemical Keys to Masonic Ritual. I think that may help you there, buddy.
Yep.
That's perfect.
What lodge are you from, too? If you are still on the show, listening to us, let us know what lodge you are, because if you are within reach, we will drown you
Yeah,
with things to do for sure.
We'll definitely help you out, man, especially within reach. Moving forward, Does Know Thyself, was that topic, that name, was that built around alchemy?
Yeah, I would say absolutely. And actually, Eduardo, you want to answer this one because I feel like I've been hogging the mic from us. So you, if you
No,
want to
that's
answer
okay,
this
man.
one,
No, go right ahead. Yeah, don't
okay.
pause.
Yeah, in Know Thyself was this was just such an interesting circumstance. Eduardo and I would just used to just have these conversations.
Right.
And so one day we were just it was kind of right after I just kind of got out of a project, kind of got out of a business. He kind of had some opening of time as well. And we just kind of get together and decided to record our first conversation. And so it was really kind of funny because it was pretty organic. And we just kind of threw the idea out as like know thyself, always knowing that that was the deepest lesson for ourselves. And as already being students at Alchemist, it always comes up, and it should be the foremost in everybody's mind. Because if you know 100% of yourself, you can give 100% of yourself. You can only give what you know and what you're aware of. And so it was really just this aspect of this self-unfoldment and kind of this self-discovery. And that was just the best way we figured, what, they summed it up all the way back in the beginning of time. Why try to change that? And so that's kind of where that know thyself came from.
Yeah,
I
we
knew
always
this
would
would be a
say
great show.
It was a good show.
nothing new under the
Yeah.
sun, and I really appreciated that because that's what we would have these exchanges about. It was just so
Yeah.
much information, and whatever we presented to one another, especially from Daniel. I mean, Daniel is really the professor here. That whenever I would sit with him, I'm like, I got this book. He's like, hey, that book's a great book, but there's
Check
seven
this
more you
out.
can check out. And I'm like, oh, you've been keeping this for me? And he's just like, no, I'm just waiting for you to get there. And I'm like, okay, so the name was very appropriate because it just, this unfoldment continues and it will continue on until,
Yes, it will.
we're no longer in the flesh.
Bro, more than half of my Instagram messages from fans are recommendations on books. So, or where to start,
Yes.
or something like that. So I do that almost every day. I wake up. Who is this? Illuminati, 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 Illuminati. Delete, 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 delete. Okay, there's real questions. Okay, cool. Somebody wants to give me $50,000 for the secrets of Freemasonry. Okay, delete. Okay, and then there's people.
Yeah.
Well, I felt this topic would have been great with you guys because of that name. I figured, you know what, these guys really know about personal alchemy, right? You're changing yourself and wanting to be a better version. That itself made this show even better, And we're super happy and honored to have you guys on with us.
For
You know,
sure.
we look forward to the next one where we're on your show and doing the thing.
Yeah.
Doing
Absolutely.
No.
my thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And it's just again, it's just such an honor to be on this journey with each and every one of you, and as well as all of your listeners and the community that you guys have created and will further be creating. And so
Where can where
we
can
are
everybody find you guys?
yeah. And so, you can find us at Know Thyself Podcast, and knowthyselfpodcast.org is our website, but you can find us on any of the podcast streaming. But Eduardo, I want to give you the floor as well. And if you want to tag us in anything, you do that, my friend.
Oh yeah, I mean, obviously, there's once you get to the website, you'll be able to find out exactly where we stream all our episodes, and we'll continue to evolve that as well because the way it is with streaming, you guys already know, whether it's this platform or that platform, a lot of things are kind of shifting in the now, and so, but the main platforms that you can find us on, obviously, from iTunes to Spotify, etc. But yeah, like I said, we hope to kind of go our own way at some point, but not yet, right, Daniel?
Yeah, no, absolutely, absolutely. But yeah, this is so great. And so when you guys come on the show, we could, this is obviously a forever conversation. We can kind of continue
Yes.
this. But if there's something that you guys specifically want to talk to, you're such a storehouse of unique information. And
Yes.
so we're really going to be open floor, and we're just going to be giddy the whole time that you guys are on our show, to be completely honest. So we're just excited.
That's awesome. I look forward to it, and we'll be in touch definitely. Do you guys have any shout outs you want to give out to any of your viewers or any of the people on listening?
Oh yeah. I mean, absolutely. We love our listeners. Thank you again for all of the support. And yeah, it's just been such an amazing journey, Eduardo.
Oh yeah, exactly. To all the listeners and to you guys right now. I mean, this is to have a conversation open like this with individuals like yourself is something that, this is why I haven't even spoken as much, because I felt like tonight was just a place for me to listen, just because it's incredible to be able to, listen to the fluidity that comes out of you guys. And even just hearing your story about Manly P Hall, it's just like wrapping my head around that librarian right now still. It's
Yeah,
like,
I
oh
mean,
my
she was
God.
shocked, but I was shocked. I kept looking at the book, and she's like, "Can I see your book?" I'm like, "I don't know if I want to give it to you now because you guys don't have it in his collection." I mean,
Yeah, yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
So
amazing
that's
stuff.
incredible. Thank you for sharing.
Yeah, I mean, I got more stories about,
He's got a lot of stories.
yeah, Manly B. Hall, and I
So
was
many
hanging out with his
stories.
best friend too. That was insane.
Ron, you got any shout outs?
I said it before. I want to say shout out to Tim Hogan, the original alchemist that got me interested in. Of course, again, Megan Piorco. I look forward to the interpretation of Dee's work that's being worked on right now.
Awesome. James, you got any?
I'm gonna switch it up. I'm gonna say what's up to all my friends from the Golden Dawn, the OTO, the OTA, and other various groups, traditional witchcraft groups, Wicca groups, and everybody else that is out there, and also all the Hakate groups out there. What's up?
Groovy. And I want to say big shout out and thank you to 10th Fathom Designs, Brian and Andrew, for producing.
Always.
I want to say what's up to all the lodges that support us. Thank you very much. We greatly appreciate you. And I just want to be thankful for
Our
you
fans,
guys right here, Know Thyself
people on the
Podcast,
show.
having them come on. And, I really love their show and I'm so happy to have them on here.
Thank you.
Brian, you got anything?
Thank you to the guests, Know Thyself Podcast. Thank you all to the listeners and viewers. As usual, shout out to everybody trying to be better tomorrow than you were today. Shout out to all the brothers at Whittier 323, Channel Islands Lodge. Yeah, that's all. That's all I got.
Orale. Well, let's close this son of a bitch up. Thanks for tuning in. However you are watching us, comment below and let us know what your favorite part of the show was. Or questions regarding the show, content ideas, booking inquiries, or just simply just to say hello. Visit our contact page on keepersoftheword.net. And if you want to send something weird, send it to James, Kazak Listener. All right. Thank you very
If you got
much.
some
And
monster-like
we're out.
information,
Peace
Later,
out.
guys.